All right, here's video number 2 of my 59 Pontiac, and to get this right, I wanted to introduce everyone to Ivan Koeller. He was the original owner of the vehicle and sold it to me, gave it to me more or less,
No,
I guess would be.
not really. Not
Yeah,
really.
and so I wanted to speak with him about the story of the car. Now, where did you buy the car, Ivan?
It was purchased from Roscoe Moore at Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
In 1959 or 60?
It was purchased near Thanksgiving, 1959.
Okay. And then when you purchased it, did you change anything pretty close after that to the car?
Well, yes, I put the chrome on the rear wings, which was for your Bonneville.
Correct.
And until the car made up an incident that it did have some extra emblems in the grill.
Okay. And then the next question I would have is, I remember something about some exhaust manifolds.
Yes, I purchased it was for tri-power and was also for your 4-barrel carburetor. If you wanted auxiliary exhaust, they were manifolds made by GM for this purpose.
Gotcha. And then you also added dual exhaust, the tri-power dual exhaust?
Well, that was what the manifolds were before.
Okay, so then that was all part of
Right.
the package, manifolds and exhaust in one. And you added that on immediately, or?
No, it was a few months later.
Okay. Well.
Now on these exhausts, could I say this? I went to this dealership in Independence, Missouri, and I started asking about the dual exhaust, and he said, every Saturday I get this question. Then I just hushed up and I said, okay, then you tell me. Yep. And he did. and they were quite expensive.
To add on the full dual exhaust and headers, yeah. And it's a 2-barrel carburetor.
Right.
And that's easier to tune, and you just left it alone.
Right.
I see that you did have a 4-barrel manifold that's in the other room here with a 4-barrel carburetor. You kind of maybe had the intention and thought of putting it on.
Right.
But then it's just easy. Right. It runs perfect the way it is. It starts perfect.
Now, Star Chief was the top of the line until 1958. And then Pontiac came out with their Bonneville. The Bonneville had a standard 4-barrel carburetor where your Catalina and Star Chief had the 2-barrel.
Gotcha.
And the Star Chief had the 2 inches longer frame, 122-inch frame, and had the complete body style with rear big tail lights of the Bonneville. Where the Catalina, if you remember, had real small.
Yep, they're a little shorter. Correct. And then when you first purchased this, this was your daily driver?
Basically, yes.
And did you have any other vehicles at the time?
No, but shortly later, when I went to Kansas City, Missouri, that I purchased another vehicle because when I was in the military, I heard of people having 2 cars. So I thought it was a good idea.
Good, you? Gotcha. And then you moved to Billings then a number of years later.
Right.
In 66?
It was 64.
64.
I was in Kansas City after the year of 1960 to April of 64. And this car has only been out in the winter, in which was no salt back in those days, for about a year and a half. And it's been stored all during the winter time and was limited use
from there. And you got about I think, if I remember right, you drove it to about 114,000 miles or somewhere in there, 116,000, in that range.
Right.
I have it recorded, but now I don't remember.
Right.
It just turned 118,000 miles, so I've only put maybe 2,000 on it since I've got it from you. Some of the travels you took in this car, you have had it to
Well, it has went into Canada, and it's been to across the Golden Gate Bridge many times, and I would say perhaps that's about it.
And then, very good road car, I would say.
Oh yes.
Comfortable.
Oh yes, yes. I can remember, if I recall correctly, and you can check the actual figures, but I was going to Kansas City, which is about 1,000 miles from Billings, Montana, on a round trip of $40.
Very nice. Yep. Well, fuel was a little cheaper then too.
And of course, we were getting between 14 and 16 miles to the gallon with ethyl fuel. This
Gotcha.
car uses ethyl fuel, which at that time was only 1, and it went to 2 cents later. The difference between regular fuel.
Gotcha.
I mean, it wasn't that much. But as years later, it went into 5 cents a gallon difference. Years later.
Now you can see that I have added some different wheels.
Right.
I do have your factory 14-inch wheels and tires in the other room, and the hubcaps, and I have intentions of buying the white walls so I can put those on also. These were just laying around, and by golly, I like the way they look, but I know they're not original.
Right.
So we will put her back to the original look at some point.
Well,
you added a choke to the carburetor, a manual choke.
yes.
In my mind, that saved that engine, because that engine starts so well that you don't have to flood it with gas every time you try to start it.
Well, now there's a little story behind that. This car was, I had it in a garage stored in Atlanta, because I was gone a lot. Back then I was over the road driver, going to Chicago and places like that. And anyway, that we tried to start the car. And at one time that we poured some gas down the carburetor and it backfired, and we had a fire in it, and the man had enough wisdom as to how to fan it and is to put it out. And it seemed like that it seemed like that the automatic choke has never worked well on this car. It just never worked well.
So then fix it to manual.
Right.
That way, yep. Because you can push the gas, pull the choke out, let off the gas, turn the key, and it fires immediately. Immediately push the choke in, and she's perfect. It's almost like it's fuel injected. It is impressive at that age of a car to start that good. So you did a wonderful job there. And then, yeah, I guess there's a couple of things we'll have to look at on the car. You had mentioned a couple of little incidences that had happened. One was a 2x4. I know you probably can't see it, but well, maybe you can. There's a little crease right here,
right,
on the top.
And you did do a wonderful job. And may I say, and I did not wax the car like I should have, and so forth. And after you got the car right away, that you waxed it up real nice and so forth. Now I did install a bona fide original Vonville rear speaker. Which has the actual control in the dash, and my uncle helped me put that in, and it's in the rear, and it has a off, on, and high, and a low of I forget what a musical thing it is. But
right, you can switch it from different.
Right.
Almost turn it off in the rear, so you just have the front.
Right.
And the way I had played with it, you could just turn just the rear speaker on if you want.
Right.
Or make them balanced.
Right, and the rear speaker does have on treble or bass. It's got 2 controls on.
Okay.
And I remember that part.
Yeah.
Come back to it. And then of course I put the seat covers on it, custom seat covers.
Right, and that's what this is. That's the custom seat cover.
That's custom seat covers.
I've got some stuff in here because we're getting ready to move, but so I apologize.
You bet. No.
Can't just really see it, but yeah, the original seat is still under there. Never really seen the daylight. I'm also impressed by the door here. I'll see if I can get it to do it. There we go. Maybe.
Right.
Pretty tight.
The rear doors haven't been that used.
Yeah.
That much.
And then Reno, Nevada, you had mentioned that you got hit in a parking lot. There's a little crease right on the star here.
Right.
That's one little blemish in there, but you were at a restaurant having coffee and saw the car wiggle a little bit, and they were long gone by the time you got out there. And then the rest of the, yeah, there just isn't much for any blemishes besides just normal age on the car. It's so nice.
This fender here we'll just put it in this light. I was told by the person that had the car at the time, please don't let anyone else drive it. Well, this person did, and this person sideswiped the car. This car is exceptionally wide. I think other cars are just as wide, but Pontiac advertised wide track in these years, and so forth. And this is why that I had to replace this fender here, and it has a little bit of a rust spot.
Right, because this fender came off of a vehicle that was in Minnesota. So here's one little rusty spot from that, and then the headlight bezel,
Right, that was hit at the center time.
and the grill
Right,
insert were replaced.
right.
Because just a little schmuck in the corner there. And the bumper fared well though.
Yes, it did.
It was just above that.
Right.
Yeah.
Very, very, very fortunate.
Yeah. And we got the Ivan license plates on there.
Yeah.
I don't know if I might be able to figure out how to keep that
Well,
when we move to, we're moving to Michigan, so.
well, that's going to be tough thing.
And yeah, there's a, bear with me here.
Oh, yeah. Something else.
Open her up. That's,
I was going to put on a underhood cable release, but I never did. But as we know, that it's easy to come along and raise the hood on these cars, and I wanted extra protection, so I engineered this.
right. Yep, makes it, you gotta know where it's at in order to do it. So it's kind of a safety feature, but yep, the lighting isn't the best here, but she's pretty original. I did replace the hoses, and they didn't want to put the old clamps on. I wanted them to, just for looks, but they didn't advise against there. Didn't advise that, and that's fine.
Well, it's true. And then, of course, I put on it. I was a general aviation pleasure pilot for years, and since this car sets a lot, I put on what they call an aviation contactor switch, which means that you can take off all of the electrical power right from the battery.
Correct.
And this is what I've done.
That's what we've added in here.
Right.
Again, lighting.
So,
Forethought on my part, but
but of course, nowadays they have things that you can mount right on the batteries, where you throw a switch back and forth.
right.
They have those now.
And just yesterday, I put a new battery in, so we're supercharged and ready to start every time now.
Supercharged.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the seat cover that you had added is starting to give away a little bit, and that's why you added this extra one on top.
Right.
But the original seat is still under there and perfect. Poor videoing on my part. I'm not a good videoer, evidently. But as you can see, the dash is in still fabulous shape. No cracks in the steering wheel. Carpet is spectacular because you meticulously took care of it with 2 layers of rubber floor mats. Yeah, one little door ding there, I suppose, from
Right.
somebody got you in a parking lot. But boy, otherwise, a little tear in the armrest. I haven't found any replacements for those. Otherwise, the headliner's perfect. There's no other flaws on the car. You've taken such meticulous care of it. And it was a dream. This is my dream car. This is a dream for me to find this and for you to offer it to me.
Thank you. Well, there's another little slant to it that it has an A in the serial number, which means manufactured in Atlanta. However, the GM assembly plant was at a small town, or we'll say somewhat of a small town back in those days, maybe about 20, 30 miles outside of Atlanta or something like that.
Gotcha.
And I forget the name of it now, but that's
Okay.
And of course, these cars were basically manufactured in California and also in Fairfax, Kansas, which is a suburb of Kansas City, Kansas. That's where the Pontiacs were generally built. So it having A in it's a little unusual, or at least I was told. A little unusual.
Okay. Any other tidbits on the car?
No, nothing I can think of offhand. It's been such a long time that I've done all this.
Yes. You kept a hold